Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we hear from Christian Robinson, the Inside Linebackers Coach at Baylor University, as he shares his transition from being a player to a GA at Georgia, his journey to his first full-time job, and the impact that building relationships has had on his career. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Robinson.
Coach Robinson, what's going on, man? Thanks for taking the long walk over from the Baylor facilities over here to the AFCA studio, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, that's exciting. I've always wanted some of the Baylor guys to come and walk over, and I think we had maybe a director of player personnel come over at one point in time. But you know, actually having you walk over, we're literally just a couple doors down from the facility, so we do appreciate you coming over. Summer. Right now, preparing for your first season here at Baylor, man, how is that going right now, the acclimation, getting used to Waco, Texas, and all that good stuff?
Well, I got here in middle of January and really gotten started, and I've been able to go through almost every season except fall. So I think the biggest thing for me is just getting adjusted. Me and my wife getting moved in here and becoming a part of the community, and the staff has done a great job of adopting me in and just taking me through who we are and what we're about, and getting in with our kids and helping them prepare for the season. And I've just been so excited about the relationships that I've been able to build here and in the community, and high school coaches and our staff here. I'm very excited about the future and just glad to be a part of it.
No doubt about it, man. I pinpoint a few staffs across the country that not that I cheer for more than anybody else, but that have a lot of 35 under 35, former 35 under 35 guys. And I think you, Powledge, Sean Bell, there's one more I think I'm forgetting. But, you guys got a few 35 under 35 guys. So just young, energetic staff. You know, I've been out to a few things and been thoroughly impressed. And honestly, I keep up with you on social media, and I think I was forgetting this is your first year, because it seemed like you've been knowing those backers forever. Man. That relationship you have built with those guys is awesome. But, man, let's dive into this thing, man, because we will hit on relationships and stuff like that. You come from a football family. Dad is a former NFL player, longtime high school football coach. You know, being a son of a football player, and then being son of a football player that transitions to a football coach, at what point in time did you decide, hey, man, I want to be a part of this business? Or did you have any of that, man, I see how much I see all the headaches Dad deals with. When did you decide you want to be a ball coach, man?
I remember growing up in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and just starting to understand what high school football was just from my dad. My dad took a job at Great Atlanta Christian there in Norcross, Georgia, and I was just the ball boy. Yeah. So just playing rec ball and then being the ball boy, I watched my dad deal with just all those issues every day, sitting in the back of the office waiting to go home every day. My dad shooing guys out, that they just want to spend time together, be there. And so seeing my dad foster those relationships was really what I said. If playing football doesn't work out as long as I want it to, that being able to take that next step and pour into other people, that kind of was planted back in high school. And just I had some great coaches that it was bigger than just the game. It was about life. Right. And when I got done playing, I'd had a foot injury at Georgia that kind of it slowed me down. And I realized in that moment that I was not going to be the same player I used to be. Yeah. And in those 2 weeks I was out, I would do all my rehab, and I'd go out to practice, and I would sit on the sidelines near the coaches that were signaling, near the coaches that had the calls that we were going over, and I would talk to those guys, those younger guys that were having to fill in for me about what they had to do. And I enjoyed knowing that I was helping them do what they loved. Right. And so that's kind of where the first stages of me actually coaching, feeling like a coach, actually took place. And so you fast forward we play in the SEC championship and after the 2011 season, and I'm planning out my senior summer, and I have one class left at Georgia to take. So it's the dream. You're just kind of rolling into football season, and a part of the course I had to do a practicum hour. So I decided to go work at a local high school for the summer. So I'd go 3 days a week. I'd be there first thing in the morning with the guys, work them out. I'd be in the weight room with them. I'd help the coaches line the field, all those little bits and pieces. That was really where I felt, okay, this is where you're getting your feet wet and getting an opportunity to see what this is like on a day-to-day basis. And, when that 2012 season ends, we lose on the 1 yard line. We're playing Alabama in Atlanta, and we go to finish the bowl game. I go off, do my off season, get a undrafted free agent opportunity, work out with the Rams there in St. Louis at the time, and as soon as that ended, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I'd kind of joked around with coaches back home. Yeah. If I got an opportunity, could I come back? Mm-hmm. And when I realized I wasn't going to play in the NFL, I said, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to get started. And at 22 years old, I started as a graduate assistant at the University of Georgia, and it happened fast.
Man, so we're going to dive into that. I want to rewind real quick because so basically you were coaching during your senior season 3 times a week. You were getting over to a local high school. So basically Friday night in the hotel room, you're refreshing Twitter or whatever, trying to see what the score is for this group of young guys.
Yeah, I just I spent mainly the summer, and I was invested in those guys and helping the coaching staff, but really the summer was when I got that, okay, you take the linebackers. They kind of entrusted me. Coach said, hey, you go take them and work with them alongside, defensive coordinator, and learning someone else's scheme that I currently wasn't running. Yeah. It's something that is unique when you go from being a player where you just run what you run to, okay, now you're responsible, hold a card up, run an individual. How that flows together. Just getting that first taste of what it feels like to be responsible for a group of people. And it was challenging, but it just fed it enough to where I think it's something I might want to do. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's get back on it now. You say you started that GA opportunity there at Georgia at 22 years old. Okay. So a couple questions I have off that. First thing is, how does that conversation go? A lot of time, I'm sure it was Coach Rick at the time.
Coach Rick, yep.
Yeah, so Coach Rick at the time, I'm sure he has a dictionary list of names of guys that have won that GA position. Yeah. When do you go and say, hey, Coach, this is something I want to do. If you got something, please let me know. When did you have that conversation? How did it go? And then how did you finally end up officially getting the gig? Yeah,
I'd kind of been planting that seed towards the end, and especially when I was training for the draft process, I kind of said, hey, this is what I'm going to try to do right now. I don't know if it's going to line up, but if there's an opportunity that comes about where there is a space, and it kind of was a linebacker space, I kind of saw what was lining up. Okay, just talking with the people that were there, and that they were getting opportunities outside the building, and so just kind of trying to see would it line up with having somebody that had been around the backers, that knew the defense, that had a relationship with the players. And so when that it kind of all lined up, I got lucky. And a lot of opportunities are just luck and relationships. And so as soon as I got let go, before I got on the plane from St. Louis, I called Coach and said, I'm 100% in. If this is something that I can do, I would love to. And obviously in the hometown that you played in college, I had already moved out of my house a week before, which was hard. I wish I could have stayed. I moved everything out only a week later to move everything back in to a new place. And so that was a challenge, and that was the beginning of the moves. And as a college coach, and that beginning stage as a graduate assistant.
Okay, so you talked about knowing the scheme, knowing this, knowing that, knowing the staff, but the most interesting thing is knowing the players. You within days you were just dapping these guys up, clowning, being silly with these guys, and now all of a sudden you're moving to a role at a top 5 university in the country in football. You're moving into this role where you're going to have to kind of have this leadership persona and all this kind of stuff. How do you how did you go about, drawing that line and saying, hey, man, I know 2 weeks ago we were hanging out in my apartment playing video games. Yeah. It's showtime now. How did you go about that transition?
I think the whole process was a challenge because your whole world has shifted. Yeah. You go from, in college football, it's easy to believe that everything is designed and set up for you. You got people, reminding you of certain things, whether because they have to or because of just forgetfulness of young kids. But I luckily had a dad that had ingrained in me how to handle my business. And so when that switch flipped, it was a challenge. When you're out in the field and you're going through summer conditioning and all of a sudden you're not out there running them with them. Yeah. And you're telling somebody to put their foot behind the line. Right. Or, hey, that wasn't good enough. You got to go back. Mm-hmm. It is challenging, but the same mentality that I take now, I know I'm a little bit older, so I get a little bit more buy-in because of the age separation now, but I've made the same emphasis of the same is I want to see you succeed. Right. I want this for you, not for me. Mm-hmm. And I tell this analogy to them, anything that I would want in life would come by me helping your life be better. Yeah. So if I focus on, if this is what you say you want to do and shining a light on how you get there, that's going to allow them to build a relationship, know where it's coming from, because it's easy to believe you want me to do this because it helps you. Right, right. But at the end of the day, I started out being more of an older brother and fighting and clawing, especially when you don't have those relationships as close as they used to be, being out there on the field, being at the dorm like you used to be. You have to over time create that separation, and it's challenging and it's difficult, but even when you're 10 years in, you still have that relationship you want to have that's as a person. Yep. But ultimately the goal that they said they wanted to do, I want to be the best linebacker in college football. How do you take those steps and create that divide where I care about you, but there's these demands that you have to meet?
No doubt about it. So it essentially it changes, mm-hmm. but it doesn't really change. It's mm-hmm. still something you have to continue to balance. Mm-hmm. Now you had the opportunity to have your dad coaching and watch him have some early hours and late mm-hmm. nights and all that kind of stuff. But I remember mm-hmm. being a college player right over here at Baylor University, and I remember being on campus and people being like, "Oh, you got practice again? You got film? You guys are always over there at the mm-hmm. stadium." When you actually stepped into that GA role, was it eye-opening when you're like, dang, I thought I was up here a lot as a player. Yeah. Like, man, I live up here now. Yeah.
I think the first realization was because I missed spring ball because I was training for the NFL. Yeah. Go to rookie minicamp. I come back in summer. We're in the office. I'd missed all spring recruiting because of where it hits and lines up. Yeah. So I come back, and summer's not that hard. We're working on stuff. You're learning how to put in data as a GA. You start, all right, we got to draw a couple cards so that we're going to put these in the books for the coaches to look at. Yeah. So we get through summer camp. Being a coach is fun. Yeah. You're working. You got the kids camp. You get to help out with position drills, evaluate guys, and then you go on summer vacation. Yeah. So really,
you live in the highlight.
Yeah, it's like I'm not having to run. Right. We're not doing stadiums. I haven't done an up down. Yeah. And we go on vacation and come back. Okay, season. So I remember when we got off the practice field the first day, and it's fun, and then we go in the meeting room. We have to watch the film. We got to prepare all this stuff. I'm like, okay. And it wasn't until we had to come back that night when everybody's going to sleep, and I'm like, wait. You just realize as a player, you don't realize all the work that goes into just a meeting, a walkthrough, practice, the breakdown. It's just all these elements that because you had to worry about yourself, getting yourself ready, and maybe getting everything lined up on the field there's a lot of stuff at night that these coaches are working on in advance so that things are prepared the right way for that 45-minute meeting.
Yeah. As a player, you just take it for granted.
I'm like, do we go home after this? Yeah. No, it's like, hey, we're going to be up here for another 4 hours.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
So you better pack your lunch. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience and taught me a lot. And I'm glad that it happened in that way because I think the best learning comes through experience. And just kind of learning on the fly.
Absolutely. And I've hit this topic on a podcast before with some other coaches, and I always kind of interject my own experience in here, but I thought I knew everything there was to know about. At the time, offensively, we were running the air raid, and I knew the playbook front to back, every position. I thought I was the football guru. And my situation is probably a little bit more unique than yours because I go to a different school, and we're not running none of that. And I was like, God, I don't know anything about football. So did you kind of have that feeling? Running the same defense, looking at, getting this, hearing your linebacker coach the same way. Did you have, when you transitioned to GA, did you really look at it and be like, man, I thought I knew everything that was going on. I don't know anything. Did you kind of have that epiphany too?
Yeah, because it wasn't the scheme or the drills, because I knew what the purpose of what we were doing there was. Yeah. It was the in-betweens, the preparing things, the doing cut-ups that were designed for a group of people, not just a highlight tape. I think a lot of guys, they can go upstairs and they can tag plays, and that's easy. But how do you structure information where someone else can grow their knowledge? That was something I didn't understand. And then the checks that you have to do in terms of players and preparing things that don't have to do with the playbook, and class checking and taking all those other roles, and then the basic things that you really learn as a GA. I'm here to support the position coaches, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, the recruiting staff, and being willing to do whatever you have to do for those people to show that I want to be here, and I'm willing to do the hard things, and it's not just a Saturday deal. I want to be a Sunday through Friday guy.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm going to interject this real quick. When you look at your bio, I get calls from young coaches periodically that are, trying to get some advice on some, career opportunities and things like that. And, ideally, if they could go from Georgia, Ole Miss to Mississippi State to full-time Florida to Auburn, I mean, that's how you want to draw it up, if, for most people. And you kind of have that, that trajectory that's just absolutely phenomenal. So with that being said, I kind of want to paint the picture, so maybe you can help these guys kind of see what it takes to actually have that path. And so you do two years at Georgia as a graduate assistant at the linebacker position. You kind of mentioned some of the stuff that you were doing, showing those guys not just on Saturdays, but Sunday through Friday, what you can bring to the table. Obviously, you do a tremendous job. Then you get an opportunity to go to Ole Miss. So once again, I'm going to ask you, how does that opportunity come about? How did you get in contact with Dan Mullen's staff, or did somebody from Georgia get in contact with them? Just talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, well, at Georgia, my first year there, I'm GAing for Todd Grantham, who was my coordinator in college. So that relationship with Coach Rick and what they were needing. But, the next year, new staff change. Jeremy Pruitt becomes the defensive coordinator at Georgia. I got moved down to that role because of the staff being restructured. I got moved to a different position. I actually worked with the defensive backs in 2014.
Oh, wow.
And, and it didn't really show up on my bio, but I went from linebackers to I had to work directly for Coach Pruitt because he wanted me, if I'm making the playbook, to be in the meetings and talk in the language and everything like that. So that was eye-opening because as similar structure the defense was, the nuances of words and things like that you were bringing to the table for the guys was different. So I had to learn new language, even though it kind of was the same. And then you go, when that ended in 2014, I was looking for what was next. I know I needed to expand. I'd been in Athens for 7 years, and so I was ready to make a change. And so I stepped away and was looking for just a new place. And I almost got out of football. I'll tell you that. I almost got out of football. I was about to take a job. My now wife, we were talking. Life was crazy for me trying to figure out where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be. And she was moving, so she's moving to Nashville. I get this opportunity in like social media marketing where I might take a job outside of football, and kind of where NIL is gone now in college. That was the kind of the beginning stages of it and what they were wanting to do, that branding for players. And so the day I'm about to sign that contract, I get a call from Ole Miss. So while I was training for the NFL, I went to a wedding with a friend, And one of the people at the wedding, it was his sister's wedding. He ended up being in recruiting at Ole Miss, and they had an opening. They had interviewed a bunch of guys, and apparently it didn't fit, what they were looking for, experience, the background, being able to do a lot of the work that they needed. And so I'm the last person that they call. And so I got an opportunity to go interview. I put that job, I literally had been handed the contract, didn't sign it. And the next 2 days I drive to Oxford in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I go meet with Coach Freeze and the staff. And, I'm in the car. I got a long drive back to Georgia to see my family. And I'm debating, do I want to get out or do I want to go take this chance? Because I miss football. I love football. Yeah. And ultimately I decided I'm going to get back in it. And working with the D-line, working for Chris Kiffin, and got to coach some really good players and learned a lot of, just the front mechanics and how to coach pass rush and all these little elements. And I grew a lot. And then fast forward that second year, we won the Sugar Bowl in 2015, 2016. The season's not going as well. And I actually get the opportunity halfway through to be a GA and coach a position for one of the inside linebacker positions, the Mike linebacker position for Dave Womack, who was the coordinator. And it was eye-opening because I'd been somebody that, hey, this is what you do for a meeting. I want you to do this. Put these slides in there, and I had free reign to this is you go structure a position meeting. Wow. And so that learning how I wanted, having my own way I wanted to do it. Yeah. Because it's easy when people tell you to do things because it filters through, hey, this is missing. Yeah. But how do you want it done? And so at the end of that year, there was some staff changes. Me and my now wife, she had moved to Oxford, and she 2 weeks before had moved to Oxford. And then we realized, we're not going to be here anymore. And so I almost go down to FAU with Lane Kiffin. I went down there to interview. My wife lives in Florida, had lived in Florida. So we were just going down there to meet Lane because he said, hey, while you're down, come meet me. Well, I was really looking for what was going to be next at the time. And I wanted the opportunity to have my stamp on it and to say, I'm going to be a position coach. Well, while that's all going on, I'm about to go take that down at FAU, I get a call from Todd Grantham, who he didn't tell me where it was yet, but he's like, I got an opportunity. The 10th coach is coming into effect the next season. If you come and coach for me as a GA, I will give you the room. I'll monitor you. I will be there to help guide you. He's like, if you come help me for this season, I will help you get a job, or hopefully we can get you the 10th position. And so I go to sit down with Dan, and I never interviewed really like for that type of role where, hey, you're the guy. The GA job is like, hey, do you know how to use PowerPoint? Do you know, have you checked classes before, all that stuff? And it was eye-opening because it became real. Like, you have to run it every meeting, every day, strength and conditioning, making sure your guys are the right weight, having those hard conversations. I had a Willie Gay who just won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, had a hard day, and he decided one day he didn't want to play football anymore. So I get in the car, leave the building to go. You're having those real life. It is the stories that everybody hears later on that nobody knows. It became mine, and owning it and showing that you add the human factor, that you can be the guy to stand in there and move this room in the way it needs to, emotionally, academically, and then the athletic performance that you're trying to get. So it was a roller coaster, and all these hard days. I tell my guys, you don't know what these things are producing and what they're going to help you be prepared for when those opportunities come. There's no doubt. And I learned so much in a short amount of time.
Man, I got so much to unpack from all that, from that 2 years. Right?
Yeah.
So much to unpack. All right. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, I know I hopped around. That's on me. I'm sorry.
No. This is great, man. Because the first thing I'm going to ask is, this is a relatively easy question here. Getting involved with the D-line, didn't know about the DB opportunity that you had for a little bit. Yeah. Just what was that like to get out of your comfort zone? How important was that to you now in the long run?
It taught me to be a great listener and to, just like we ask our players to learn a certain scheme, a certain play, a certain personnel group, it was really learning how to learn something to teach someone else. My family, my dad and my sister are both teachers. My mom's a nurse, so they've had to continually be involved in learning after college.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what they do is teaching someone else. And so working with the D-line, it was a new world, even though you kind of know fits and hey, the guy's in that gap, but okay, hand placement, eyes, get off, just things that were out of my normal day and that I couldn't walk out there and just naturally, hey, linebacker, you drop this way, you junction this point. It was learning a whole new language and a different point of view. And you're not looking as much coverage stuff. Yep. You're looking at the front mechanics, and the D-line was a very technical learning experience because you get in these same situations over and over and over again. And so you're just trying to prepare them on how to react.
Yeah.
And whereas I felt like being an off the ball coach player, it can be very like, hey, you get to this gap, you get to this line, you get to this route. Whereas you're trying to get those guys, if they ever get in a bad situation, to learn how to get themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And after being here, obviously not to jump around, but being it with Dennis Johnson here at Baylor, just seeing all the different ways that he's prepared his guys as the position coach, it's on a whole nother level. So it was a introductory course into what it would be like to coach another position, and then to have to go do it every day for Chris Kiffin and splitting up, getting in groups and learning to be a coach and take ownership of a group of people.
Absolutely. All right. So still unpacking from that 2-year stint. You mentioned your current wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who you were dating at this point in time. Before we got to recording, you kind of let me know that you met her while you were a GA at Georgia.
Yeah.
you kind of really skimmed this real fast. It was like she was moving to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, she's living in Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, y'all are in the truck heading down to Florida
mm-hmm.
to do what you didn't know.
Yep.
So just real quick, because I just want to throw this part in there. How did she get acclimated to this profession? Because obviously that was just a whirlwind, and she could easily be like, "I'm out of here. I'm out of here." Those transitions. How did you converse about it? How did y'all talk about it? How did you make these decisions, especially the one where you're about to sign with the social media company and be out of the game?
Yeah.
What was that dialogue like?
Well, we were really just friends, and we had a friend group. And when I left Athens, I realized in that short amount of time, leaving everybody that I'd known to take this next opportunity, that when I decided, that I wanted to stay in football, I realized that I missed her. And I was like, there was some stability just having somebody to converse with that understood, that had seen those first few days of my career. Even though she didn't understand in the beginning, she saw me go through them and learned what my days looked like and how it affected her. And she continued to come back and that she was willing to deal with those things with me and be a support system to guide me on, just what I was dealing with. Because I think a lot of times whether a player or coach, what you're dealing with and what you're thinking about, who you going to about the real feelings that you're having about things. And so, when I decided to go to Oxford, and she moved there with me, and we're right before we get let go at Ole Miss, it's just seeing that, man, this is going to be hard, that it's not going to be easy, and your group gets smaller. Who's going to ride with you when things go good? Who's going to ride with you when things go bad? We won the Sugar Bowl. I remember that first year at Ole Miss, we beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That was a great win. We end up winning the Sugar Bowl, all that. You go, and then the next season, it's not as good, and you don't go to a bowl. So she saw what the highest of highs looks like winning one of those BCS games, and then to now what it looks like when you don't do well, who's going to be in your corner. Right. And I think being married now and all the transitions we made from school to school, from town to town, to now being in Waco, Texas, and the jobs that she's had to change, and it's not easy, but who do you choose to do those challenges with? Absolutely. And that partner that is lockstep with you when things are good and when things are bad.
You said something that I said earlier, I've done about 300 of these podcasts, and I've never heard this before, which is hard at this point in time with that many podcasts. But you talk about your circle getting smaller. You think that group of friends that you had at some point in time that were probably players that might not necessarily got into the coaching business, and that's really crazy when you really when you said that. I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, it did get small because they didn't understand. They didn't understand the hours. They didn't understand. Hey man, why don't you just go be linebacker coach at Alabama? It doesn't work like that.
100%.
Yeah, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so just being able to have that sounding board and you know, that partner in crime throughout this crazy business is awesome. All right, and there was one more thing that I wanted to unpack out of that deal was you talked about Ole Miss. Yeah, at Ole Miss, that second year they gave you a position. Why on earth did they do that? You know, what did you do? You know, maybe you can't answer this, but what did you do for them to say he can do it? Let's give it to him.
It started with really just working with the D-line and kind of just the volume of guys that you're dealing with to be able to split things up and work certain drills, whether it's a circuit and how you handle that, whether it's, you know, being involved with special teams where you're working a drill and a coach, you know, Coach Freeze walking around, coordinators are walking around, seeing how you handle that. Are you articulating the information? Are you able to handle when someone doesn't do it right? It's not just you know, pushing a button. It's dealing with a real human being that is trying to learn something, and that's what they want to do. And we forget that there's things they haven't learned yet.
Right.
And so, you know, that season, that second season, I'm getting comfortable. I know everybody. I know how everything works. And I think I'd been staying after with some of the backers that we'd had some transfers that had come in, you know, the traditional old way, and they were trying to get adjusted. And so I'm teaching them and trying to be that bridge because I'm a little bit younger. I'm 26 at the time and trying to show them, you know, our defense and just trying to be that bridge. And the season wasn't go the way we needed to. And I think we were looking for a little bit of energy and a little just shaking things up. And, you know, we're going into LSU game, Ole Miss LSU game, and I get the opportunity to, Coach Friesen that week in the media told him what was going on. So it wasn't like, hey, just something behind the scenes. He'd kind of said it, and which was, I didn't know how to take it. You know, I'm like, I didn't need that, but all of a sudden people are now watching me and people outside the building know Christian's working with the linebackers. And so it was a humbling experience because just dealing with not knowing what it felt like to be in front of a group of people and them say, this is the guy that's going to lead me to success in this week, the rest of the season, however that is. That's your job, is to make someone's life better and on the field make their playing better.
Absolutely. So all right, now I think we're all caught up now.
Okay.
So, we'll revisit this part here. So you're driving down to Florida. You sit down with Lane Kiffin at FAU, and you get this call from a guy you know, love, and trust. He's like, I got something. I can't tell you what. It's a 10 position that should be coming. Maybe I'll give it to you, and I'll help you. You know, if you come down and do a good job. And so it's like a lot of F's. It's a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, when you don't necessarily have a position, sometimes that call is all you need. But the trust level, you know, number one on his side of it, to trust you to be the guy to come on, and then the trust level from your end to say, hey, look, I don't know what this situation is going to bring, but we're heading back to Mississippi. Kind of just talk a little bit about that.
I've when I get asked by younger coaches and GAs, when I interact with them, and they're like, tell me what do you, when you're making a decision, what's important to you? And I go back to that one. I chose going where I was wanted. You know, I'm debating whether I want to live in Boca Raton, Florida as a GA, or do I want to start Vegas? And I chose to bet on myself. I chose to bet on a relationship that I had seen, that somebody that invested in me in some way. And so going where you're wanted, I think, has always been my motto, because when push comes to shove, who is going to say, hey, this is what I believe about this person? Who knows you? Who knows what's inside of you as a person, your drive? And picking that, to me, in that moment was paramount to me. And so someone to speak on your behalf, because we've all had somebody that is above us that is giving us an opportunity to move forward, whether that's a teacher, whether that's a coach, whether that's in a job, somebody that's willing to bet on you. And that was more important to me in that moment. And versus, maybe what on the outside might look like a place you want to go. I said, I'm going to go, to a rival school and right down the road to bet on that. And somebody that was willing to risk for me too.
Yeah. No
and
question.
Coach Grantham did that for me.
And so you go there, you basically run your room, right? Have a good season.
Yeah.
Just real quick, we'll buzz through that. Just tell us a little bit about that experience this season. You're still a graduate assistant, but you have a position group. You got these responsibilities that these guys that are. I hate talking dollars on the podcast sometimes, but I mean, you got guys making six figures, in all these other rooms, and you're trying to figure out. I'm sure you're getting taken care of decently, but you're still a graduate assistant. What was that year like for you in your growth as a ball coach?
That spring was exciting because it was all fresh.
Yeah.
And so you start to finally build your own. What do you want your teach tapes to look like? What do you want your cut-ups to look like? And so it was balancing being a GA, trying not to be completely different, but you have a different expectation from you. So my whole role was I took the whole passing game. I'd draw every route for every game on Vizio. I'd draw it up. I'd get there early. Just like all the other GAs were, but that was what I said. I'm going to knock this out, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm prepared for the linebackers. So I did my part for the room of young coaches, and then I'm going to do this major part that I need for my own development, but for the team. And so I learned time management. I was helping recruit, but I wasn't the main face of it at the time. And so I got to really just focus on building the football side of it and the coaching philosophies and teach tapes. And that it was just a great experience for preparing for that next year that ended up coming. But that's where I learned my fundamentals of who I wanted to be, how my tapes look, and how my meetings are run, how our individual is structured, what we do on Monday, what we do on Tuesday, what does a Thursday review day look like, and how do you create your own philosophies for what's important and when, because I was given that autonomy, and I believe that anybody that gives you that autonomy to take ownership, be accountable for it, but giving that autonomy, you allow people to create their own philosophies and who I want to be and what is my football players going to look like. Yeah. And that was an exciting time and challenging and nerve-wracking, but the season went well. We had Willie Gay had performed really well, Errol Thompson, Leo Lewis, Des Harris, all those guys end up having a good season, and which created another opportunity for Coach Mullen to take the Florida job the next year. And I never thought in a million years I'd be a part of that.
Yeah. Well, let's get to that. You join the staff, you're a graduate assistant. You're 27, 28 years old, coming off Tax Slayer Bowl. I guess Coach Mullen probably got the job prior to that. Did you participate in the bowl game?
I did. I stayed with Coach Greg Knox, who was the interim head coach for that bowl game, playing Lamar Jackson. Yeah, and so so you put on the tape, and your coordinator's already left for the job. Your head coach has already left. A couple of the offensive coaches have already left. So all these GAs, got to fill these roles, and it was a great learning experience. And Ron English is running the defense. Greg Knox is the head coach. Brett Elliott is leading up the offense with DJ Looney on the offensive side of the ball. And you realize, okay, when there's those personnel changes, those personality changes that aren't in the room, who are we going to be for this week? Yeah. And we found a way with the guys, Coach English deciding what was most important in the scheme to him because he's a coordinator. And those little subtle changes, and I got to watch him do that. So it's like, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be in this moment? And we find a way to beat Lamar Jackson. They had to have a Hail Mary at the end, that the victory play that you practice a million times. It comes up when you got the interim, So it was so cool, and to storm the field on the last play and kind of like a mini season for that month of bowl practice. It was really cool to be a part of. Yeah.
So where you at this point in time? From a job standpoint, do you know if you're going to Florida? Do you not? You're in the dark.
I'm in the dark. I had no idea. I know, Coach Grantham had, we'd messaged when he said, I'm not going to coach the bowl game, and was moving with Coach Mullen to get started on the class at Florida.
Okay.
And so, being a GA, that was one thing, but I'm sitting there wondering, is he going to follow through with what he said?
Mm-hmm.
And because it's just, you haven't done anything, you haven't signed anything. I've never had a contract. You just kind of show up and start classes and enroll and all that as a GA, and finished the bowl game. I packed up everything in Starkville. Me and Ryan Osborne, who's now the DC, he's been at Michigan, went to the Ravens last year, and he's now the DC at Charlotte. We throw all of our stuff in a U-Haul because he knows he's going, but I'm like, I'm going to put my stuff in Gainesville in a storage unit, and I'm going to leave it there. And I went and stayed with my now wife's family, just waiting to see if I was going to get a call.
Yeah.
So literally don't have a house anymore, apartment. I already let that lease up. My stuff I'm paying for a storage unit in Gainesville, Florida, in a place that I don't know if I'll be a staff of, and just sitting and waiting for a call. And so I remember it was January 5th, 2018. My wife is getting her hair done. I'm the driver that day, so I'm dropping her off, and I'm sitting in the car just waiting, looking at all these social media jobs, everything that's going on, and all of a sudden I get a call from Dan Mullen and saying that, we'd like for you to be the linebackers coach. And I'm just trying to play it cool. And then as soon as I get off the phone, I get out of the car and I'm just walking around the parking lot just like it happened. It all this time, from 2013 to January of 2018, like all those decisions that people said, why are you doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you packing up everything in your SUV? That's all that you have. Mm-hmm. Take it to drive to Oxford, leaving home, everything that you know. Why are you being a GA again, going to Mississippi State, flipping to a rival? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And in that moment, everything made sense. Yeah. And it's just, I tell our guys, we have guys that commit or things like that, trying to remember those moments, because it's easy to get caught up with what's next and forget about, this is what you wanted, you earned it, and you did all the things you had to do to get this, and now there's going to be a new challenge. And so just taking that moment to take it all in and be thankful, because those are the moments you remember the most.
It's funny you say that. I did a podcast with somebody here this week, and once we got off, we were kind of just doing some post talk, and he's like, man, I forgot about all that. It's just crazy when you sit there and think about it, because this profession is so just wacky like that. You never get to stop and smell the roses, and you sure to heck don't get to look back and look at them when you pass them up.
Yeah.
So sometimes having this opportunity to sit back and talk about it, it's kind of crazy.
It is.
How much of a whirlwind that was when things begin to stabilize a little bit more. But you're cool as the other side of the pillow as you're telling this story. What was the feelings and emotions kind of just hanging in limbo there for a little bit? I remember being let go. Our staff was let go in 2015. Man, it felt like an eternity from the time that we were let go. The season was completely over. I was out of the building, and before I actually had a legitimate opportunity for my next job, and it was anxiety. It was all those emotions, and I played it cool. But were you kind of dealing with some of this? What's next? What am I gonna do? Were you feeling that?
Yeah, and I think we go talking about my current wife. She was my girlfriend. She didn't get the job. She was trying to get back into nursing school. She ends up getting denied from, just because of like a clerical thing, from the nursing school there in Mississippi. So we don't get to live in the same town. We're trying to be in the same place. She ends up going to Sanford Nursing School, 2 hours away. It's closest we've been since we left Athens. Yeah. And then I spent 10 months at Mississippi State, and then I get the job at Florida, and she's still in Birmingham, and I'm in Gainesville. And so it's just, as you're sitting in limbo, it's never just you. Yeah. And that was where you start to learn that it's not just you. You're trying, and these hard decisions that you make, it's like, this is going to affect someone else. And I don't have kids, but I think about that all the time. It's like these choices and decisions that you make are going to directly affect the life and trajectory of the people that are following you and are in your family, And so I remember being in limbo, and it's just like everything. You're kind of triggered by everything that's going on. You see somebody else that's gotten clarity and they're moving on, or you're wondering, am I good enough? You know, you still have those thoughts, even as you're accomplishing these things. Am I moving forward? Yeah. And does somebody think that I'm credible to come lead a room and represent a part of the program? And so those emotions are real and are never get easy. Even now, after 10 years of doing this, it doesn't get any easier. You still have those question marks in your gut. Yeah,
no doubt about it. And, you know, I think it's, you know, anytime you get hired, man, it's an awesome experience. I know that wave of emotion that kind of comes through regardless of what the job is, any level. But all right, you have the SEC Florida Gators, you know, who not a fan of those guys right at that point in time. And you know, you're getting this opportunity to go run a room there. And those type of hires at that level are so polarizing where, you know, they announce you and you have thousands of fans that are, you know, is this man, he's never been a full-time coach. Like, what are we doing here, right? Yeah. You know what? I had this question prepared, and I didn't realize you actually had so much experience, kind of actually running your own room throughout the course of time. So, so people knew you were prepared on that staff. But you know, why did Coach Dan Mullen not call the hundreds of other guys that have coached for him to come, you know, coach his linebackers that had plenty of experience in the SEC, all that kind of stuff? Why was it you?
You know, I'll go back to Todd Grantham. I mean, he when we left, he said that's who I want to come be a part of what we're doing. And it was somebody putting their name on it. Yeah. And for someone else. And I'll be completely honest, because of that I have my whole mentality on the people that work underneath me. I know the value of when someone calls you and says, what do you think of this guy? You're holding not just that person, but their family in what you say. Yeah, absolutely. And so I just realized how much someone else's word carries weight. And to pick me, I know I wasn't prepared for all the things. And I don't think any job you ever take, you're ever prepared for all the things, because there's things change. You look at NIL now, you look at the social issues that come up in being a coach that you didn't have, that weren't brought to the forefront years before. So who knows how to handle that? You learn as you go on a lot of these things. And there's some good habits and behaviors and knowledge to have, but it's more of the temperament and knowing that this person is going to be able to handle it, that they'll find a way, that they'll treat people the right way. And I'm appreciative to Coach Grantham forever for not only as a player, but as a GA, as a position coach, to put his name on the line for me. And I try to do that for others. So you've, you know, at this point in time, we're going to put time out. It's 2018 through 2021. You've been at Mississippi State. You've been at Ole Miss. You've been at Georgia. You know, Georgia and Ole Miss, you were there for 2 years. Mississippi State for 1. Counting Florida, which one of these jobs do you feel like you had the most growth at? You know, obviously, you had the youth at one point in time where you are just truly just learning a lot of stuff you didn't know. And then you have this major job where you're a full-time guy. You know, you got your own room. Yeah. You're in the mecca of football. You know, which one would you say you had the most growth at? I'd say it's Florida. It's Florida. I think it's one of those great brands in football where you go and now people are looking at you. I remember the first day we got there, we went to the store to pick up some stuff for my wife to get her some gear. We all wanted Florida gear. We're celebrating. You know, we had the first night. I remember Ed Ashoff he went to Florida. He texted me. He knew before it broke that I was going to get the job. So you were at dinner. I'm getting all of his spots, and we're sitting there. No one knows that I got the job except a couple people. And then the next day, it gets announced, and you start walking around Gainesville, Florida, and you realize all of a sudden people are watching. Right. And so it went from just being a part of the cog and behind the inner workings to now people are watching every single thing that you do. I think as a player, it was different because it was really about your behavior and on-field play. Yeah. And that's all really people on the outside would observe. But when you become a position coach, people are evaluating the relationships that you build in the community, how you represent the university, the things that you say, the things that kids and families say about you. That became a part of what I was being evaluated on a day-to-day basis, and social media. And you can't deny it. Like if things get said, it's a part of the narrative, and people start talking. And so I learned so much when it's on you, because you see some of the mistakes that you made, whether, learning how to set up an official visit when you trying to navigate that with a high school coach and the family, you go to a media session and you got to stand at a podium. I didn't have to do that as a coach. I had to do it as a player, and that's so much simpler as a coach, representing the alumni, representing the players on your team and your head coach. Like it's not about you.
Yeah.
And it's about everybody else. And are you making their life better? Are you making the team better? Are you bringing in prospective student athletes that are going to make the university proud of who is out there on and off the field? And it was a humbling moment for me to go through all that, and represent a brand that I played against, and to see what it is, and to grow to love it. And Gainesville that's where me and my wife got married. Like we got married at the courthouse downtown before we had our big wedding.
Yeah.
And so Gainesville will always be where my own family started, and where my career started, and where I had the most growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I've asked this question here on the podcast here recently. I didn't have it for you, but I'll ask it. I'm sure I know the answer, but you ever do get to pause and look back on your career, you kind of got a special place, and they're all special for these different reasons. We were super successful on the field here. This place, this was my first time getting to be a full-time coach, or this place is where I got married, I had my first kid. Florida's kind of like a little bit of all that, mixed up into one.
Yeah.
What place to you, just as you look back, it's just that one place. I'm not saying it's better than anything or anything like that, but it's just that one place where it's like, man, that place is different.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
I think it would be, just looking at everything that happened, that first job, being a part of the beginnings of that era at Florida, winning the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, going to year 2, Kyle Trask becomes the starting quarterback, Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, John Grenard on defense, C.J. Henderson, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So you start to be a part of these guys' days, and people are starting to realize, you're out there helping, Voshan Joseph, David Reese, helping them get prepared, Ventrell Miller. Like, you start to be a part of, you're attached to those players, that you're their coach. And so you're growing, and then you throw in COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And navigating that part of our history in the game of football, and everything that transpired in that window of time, and leading a room, and then going fast forward to 2021, where you get to the end and you get an opportunity to be an interim DC, where, you saw it from this view, but this is what the DC was having to think about all these days that I didn't have to think about, and meetings with people, going to meet with the media, going to Thursday night at Spurrier's to go talk with Coach Spurrier and do a radio show. Like, I never had to do those things. And so while those are always dreams that you had as a young GA, to get to that point when you actually have to do it, what does that produce in you, and how do you learn to grow and get better at it? And you learn as you go. And I think I made some great relationships there that will last a lifetime. Some learning experiences as a coach on things I wish I would have done better, and that I improved on while I was there, that have altered what I believe my job really is, and the environment that I want to create in my position room. And ultimately one day, when hopefully I get an opportunity to be a DC and a head coach, that'd be the things that I'm hoping for in the future. And I learned a lot of those early things there at UF.
Absolutely, man. That's getting goosebumps because I hear the meaning of it, because I know how special some of these places can be, man. And obviously you went through a ton of stuff there in those 3 years. All right, so let's hop to Auburn. Okay, so that was a very unique stint, very public. A ton of stuff that kind of went on there, and we'll stay away from that. Just that transition, getting to that job. What was the exit of Florida? Please remind me. Were you guys let go, or?
So I was I believe I was the last person to get let go at Florida. So I'd been there, gone through recruiting, did all that for that staff, and then you get through the bowl game, run that, and then find out you're not being retained, And so going to, a lot of these, everything was kind of still in Zoom a little bit after at that point, just with where everything was. So interview with a couple coaching staffs and, get connected with the Auburn staff. And for me, recruiting the Southeast and growing up not far away from Auburn, that in my mind, when the opportunity came, I said this would be a great opportunity to continue what I've been doing, to be a little bit closer to home. My family had moved to Nashville. A lot of my wife's friends, they all were married to Auburn guys. So I was like, this is kind of makes sense for me. And so to make that jump there, it was new because I'd made the previous jump with Coach Mullen, Coach Grantham. I kind of knew everybody to now I don't know anybody. And learning a new program after people have already been there and another rival. Right, so it's just to have to learn how a whole nother new group does things. And it was eye-opening because I'd gotten comfortable in knowing what to expect every day and the relationships. And for 5 years were the same. And so that was brand new when you walk into Auburn and a whole different legacy and different way of doing things.
Well, you said something interesting there. I kind of look at stop at Ole Miss, right? You randomly get this call from Hugh Freeze. Next, you're in Oxford doing an interview. Mississippi State, you get this call. You don't even know that you're going there. It's just some big secret that's drawing you over there. You go to Florida. You get this. Felt like a call that you've been waiting on forever. To come down there and join the staff in a full-time role. And then you get to Auburn, and this is once again it's whole unique kind of situation where you get introduced to these places. So it's like regardless of how long you've been in the business, some stuff is just always new, right? Making that transition there to not knowing anybody. So I do want to ask, how did you get connected to the job? Because obviously Auburn is not putting their linebackers job on football scoop or things like that. So how did you get connected to it? I understand how it goes, but just to educate people as much as you can share. Anything you got to leave out, please do.
No, I'll say that it really started with relationships. A couple people that Jeff Schmedding is somebody that I care a lot about. That he was a DC. It was taking over that DC role there at Auburn. And we had some similar connections, but never had crossed paths. And so, Mike McDonald, who is the defensive coordinator for the Ravens now, who the year before had been at Michigan as the DC there and helped them have a great season. He had become friends with Coach Schmedding. Okay. And so just those connections, those relationships, who do you trust? Who's somebody that's going to have the right temperament, who's been recruiting this area, just kind of when your name gets brought up, okay, and then people start to dig and say, okay, how's he take? People take a peek at, what they can find on the internet about you, an interview like this, like they see how does that person come across and are they going to be able to handle the environment that we're going into? And so when your name gets brought up and then there's a similar connection and then they call somebody who calls somebody and then you got people in-house that are, hey, see if you know anybody that knows them. And then you get an interview and then you have to show, okay, what is this guy's background and who he is, his character, his core values, his belief on the position, what's important, what would be the first thing you'd teach? How would you structure your install? What does that look like? So it's kind of going piece by piece down this rabbit hole of football because all it is, I joke around about playbooks, but playbooks are all they are is design relationships. How does this group seek to want to act together when things get difficult and complicated in our reactionary process? Yeah. And so when you're going through the interview process, they're trying to hit the points that are important to them that they want to make sure fill that position. Absolutely. And so they're going through their playbook on what does that person's makeup need to be from a educational standpoint, their character, their temperament, and are they going to fit with this organization and where they want to go?
Right. So you had this short stint there, defensive run game coordinator, a lot of outside noise. Yeah. Just talk to us, just a brief rundown of your experience there at Auburn. Not necessarily getting into the dirty details of some stuff, but just what was that experience like for you versus everything that you have kind of been through prior to that?
Yeah, I think it was a building block, like a fundamental building block of who I plan and hope to be moving forward, because obviously the season didn't go the way we wanted. But I will say, when Cadillac Williams got named interim head coach, I remember like just the feelings and emotions of, being an African American and seeing somebody run their program that they played at and legend at, right. And to see him, I might not be. He's like, I'm not going to try to be something that I'm not. And he just said, I'm going to focus on these things. And a lot of it had to do with just serving. Mm-hmm. And it showed me that there's a different way to win games. You don't always have to have the best players. You don't always have to have the best scheme. But when those guys go out there on Saturday, do they show up and do what they need to do to win? Yeah. And we talked about serving and leadership and all these things, and we simplified in all these other areas and said, we're just going to be good at this and we're just going to outplay people. Mm-hmm. And, we won some games that, you on paper, you go through the names, you look at some of the recruiting boards, and we won some games that people said that should not have happened. Right. But to see the outcry of support, to walk through, you're going through the Tiger Walk, mm-hmm. and I played against Cam Newton in Jordan-Hare Stadium in 2010 when he took the field, and I didn't walk through that one, but you had people in the crowd saying, this feels like that day. Yeah. And so to see Cadillac go back and represent his university and what was important to him and what he wanted to put his stamp in that short amount of time on what was important to him and what I want to be remembered for, I think we might not always get those opportunities that is grand in the setting at where you played on a national stage, but every day you get to choose that as a position coach, and who do you want to be and how do you want people to feel you in your meetings and when you go out in the community. And it just said, you know what, it might not always be about scheme. It might not always be about talent. It might just be about who you are. Right. And I tell my guys every day, you'll be judged in this life on how you affect other people. And I watch somebody put the focus on everybody else but himself, and to go win and find a way to lead a program, and it was exciting to see.
Yeah, man, that's I think everybody kind of remembers that time when it was obviously a bunch of ESPN highlights on just some of those wins, and a lot of stuff happens, and you just move on. Everybody else just moves on. It's crazy how impactful that is for your career, mm-hmm. probably your coaching philosophy moving forward. So that season ends. You guys aren't retained. Mm-hmm. This is when I meet you at
mm-hmm.
that point in time. I've just seen your work over the course of time, and you're part of that 35 under 35 class. You actually show up to the convention, mm-hmm. no logo. Mm-hmm. You're just there trying to figure everything out. Were you at Baylor at that point in time?
No. I've gone into conversations, but I was not. It wasn't done yet. Yeah, so I was just trying to figure out if we're working through just the fundamental pieces of it. But I'd started to have those conversations with Coach Aranda, and was definitely an exciting time for me, because I'd actually recruited the same players, and we'd ran into each other the year they won the national championship at LSU. Okay. And I just remember meeting him. I said, if I ever got an opportunity to work for him, that I would run at it, just because it felt something, just felt different. And, going to the convention and still going through that process, trying to, meet people and not knowing if I'm going to be the one that they want. It was, going without a logo and walking around that building, it can be difficult. Yeah. And, but it's the same thing. It's like, what are you looking for, right, and who do you want to represent and be a part of?
No doubt. Now, you said you ran into him on the road. Did you have any dialogue with him at that point in time? Did y'all know each other prior to?
I didn't. We are somehow our recruiting travels were exactly the same. We were on the same practices, same planes, doing the same trek. I think it's because it was that national, recruiting track of all those players we needed to see at the linebacker position. And so just getting to sit and talk to him and watching him and observing how he talked to people, it's clear when you're sitting in a room with a high school coach, what's important, because that time that you get with a high school coach is really important to show who your program is, what your plans are for their prospective student athletes, and how you can make their life better and be a part of that community as with the high school coach as well, because we're taking their best. We just can't go and take them and never come back. It's got to be a lifelong partnership.
Absolutely.
So,
well, we actually had Coach Aranda speak, maybe it's not this past year, but the year prior to the AFCA convention, he was a general session speaker. And, he quoted Maya Angelou and even keel, just very, very cerebral type of speech. Like I just was hooked for 50 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And, and just always heard about it, but really walked off. I was like, man, that dude is different.
Yeah.
And, I'm an alum, so obviously, get some rumblings about just how special of a guy he is to be around. As your career, you've been around kind of like Williams, you've been around Brian Harsin, you've been around Den Mullen, Hugh Freeze, Mark Rick. Like, these are all dudes, man. And once again, Dave Aranda is just different. They all are. They all are different. Have you seen the impact in your short stint here so far of just his type of cerebral leadership? Yeah,
I feel like I remember calling my dad after like my first week in Waco, being a part of the staff. I said, Dad, I feel like I went back to school for being a football coach.
Yeah.
It's you sit in and it's easy to just want to take in scheme and practice schedules and all that. But like when, his whole model person over player, like that flows through everything that we do.
Right.
And for a coach, like we do head coach training. Like, so if you start getting trained up on what a head coach has to deal with, you're going to start looking at things through the lens of what he's looking at so that you can be more prepared for addressing issues that come with players and recruiting and management and all those things. And so to create a better person is going to make the occupation that you're responsible for better.
Yeah.
Because if that person's more sound, more ready, more, shedding away the things that everybody else thinks is important to what is the core of what you're doing. We practice to prepare for an opponent, but we get to practice against ourselves. So if we focus on the character, the connectivity of the team, well, when I go out to practice and I'm an O-lineman giving a look for the linebackers, I understand that my look is not just for us to win a game, but to make that player the best he can be. It's going to translate to making me better, and it just spirals. And it's like, where do these things grow from? Where are you putting that seed down to plant? And he plants it in the character and person development, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And that is something that I will forever incorporate into my process as a coach, and that is fundamental to who he is. And that is why I left where I've been, because I said, this is what I want to be, and the football piece will come as a byproduct of it. And he lives that every day. And I joke around, my dad's like, I feel like I'm just sitting at the feet of a professor learning how to just look at things as they really are, and not how maybe everybody else sees them.
Coach, man, I've enjoyed this hour with you, man. I sure appreciate you. I know vacation time is valuable time for a coach, but to spend an hour with me has been amazing. Before I let you go here, I want to just really just quickly kind of glaze over your experience at 35 and 35, why you think guys should apply for this and what it's done for you.
I just, I go back to this whole conversation we've had has just been relationships and being exposed to new ways of thinking, new, I enjoy going to meet high school coaches because they're at the fundamentals of what they do and watching them find ways to teach their guys, but then coming together in a group of young coaches that, I saw a bunch of the people that were in that room with me being at the forefront of where the game is going, where the type of people that they are, what they stand for, and growing the game in such a way that it's going to be sound for years to come, and the product that we put out there, because we're all dealing with the same issues. We're dealing with people and navigating that, and just to be in a room full of guys that in their own perspective areas of the country have found a way to succeed not only as coaches but as people, where they're having impact in their community. And that was a part of it too. That the program, you think it's just you going just for football. Yeah. It's the philanthropy side, right. The development side, the character development, and that day went by so fast because you're getting to sit in there and hear about things that matter to what we do every second of every day. And so to be considered a part of that group, it was humbling because I knew I'm going to build relationships that are going to last a lifetime. Met some coaches and alumni that are part of the program that come for the luncheon. It's just a full day of just, man, I'm going to be reaping the benefits of this for years to come, because how often can you get that amount of guys in a room, right? And with what we do, to be in one place, to be focused on the same issues in the game, to be focused on building the right type of people, even the personal side, the financial side, the agent side of football, being able to hit all those touch points. I don't know where else you can get that in that amount of time, right, in that setting. And it's something that it'll be a part of who I am forever. And anybody that gets to be a part of that, I know that it'll make them better. And I'm excited to be a part of it and to be able to tell people that this is something special and unique that you don't get anywhere else in the country. And to be able to be a part of it is something that's going to be, I got my cup we got there in the car. I carry it with me every day. And it just reminds me of a great time in my life, and just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fast and furious day, but it sounds like it was worth it. Mm-hmm. Coach, once again, I appreciate you. If you don't mind, if you want to share your Twitter account, just so guys can kind of keep up. Like I said, I think you do some really special things. I know that's more on your IG side, but if you want to share any of that, please feel free to do so. Okay.
Yep. My Twitter's and everything is CRob45, CROB45. Same one since I was a player, and it's evolved and changed over time. But I'm just real appreciative of you and the role that you have, and you've just connected so many people. And like I said, and one of my core values, life's about relationships, and what you do for these coaches. And obviously, it's a great honor to be selected, but it's the relationship pieces that are going to last a lifetime with high school coaches, college coaches, and throughout the whole level of the game of football. And just appreciative to you and the staff that just puts that all together. I know it's not easy, but I know we're all thankful and appreciative of it.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for coming over once again. Sick 'em. We'll definitely be looking forward to watching you guys this season, and look forward to seeing you in Nashville in 2024.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, man.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.